Good morning, students. Today's topic is National Policy of Education 1986, its review 1992. And this topic's objectives are, first of all, regarding secondary education, national policy of education stressed on the improvement of the quality of secondary education. And this regarding the secondary education effort to be made to provide computer literacy in as many secondary level institutions to make the students equipped with necessary computer skills. And next, the regarding higher education, national policy of education and program of action of 1986 and 1992 emphasized that higher education should provide to the people with an opportunity to reflect on the critical social, economic, cultural, moral, and spiritual issues. And next, the objectives are thus the basic objectives of the national policy of education of 1986 and program of action of 1992 emphasized that education must play a positive and interventionist role in correcting social and regional imbalance, empowering women, and in securing rightful place for the disadvantaged and the minorities. And government should take a strong determination and commitment to provide education for all. The priority areas being free and compulsory education, covering children with special needs, eradication of literacy, education for women's quality, and special focus on the education of SCs, its scheduled caste, and STs, scheduled tribes, and minorities. And next, the objective is the educational policy as highlighted in the NPE also emphasized on enhancing and promoting the vocationalization of education. Adult education, education for the mentally and physically challenged persons. Non-formal education, open universities and distance learning, rural university, early childhood care and education. Delinking degrees from job was also one of the basic objectives of national policy of education of 1986. Delinking degrees from job was also one of the basic objective of national policy of education of 1986. And next, the introduction of national policy. In a democratic country, there is a need of democratization of education. In order to achieve education for all, so many initiatives and attempts have been made by the government of India. Through policy formulation, the government lays down directives for the future course of action towards realizing some prescribed goals. In democratic society, the goal lays in the various aspects of the welfare of the people. For the well being of the Indian nation and the Indian society at the national and local level. Defined thrust has been laid down on education. Even in early Indian history, education figured in the administrative policies of the government. These are the democratic countries' education type, and the next, the modern trend. Modern trend of development can be full, fruitful, traced to the British colonial government, about which we have already come to know that such effort and measures are being continued in the post independence time in India. In this type, we shall focus on one of the important initiatives of the government of India towards democratizing education. This is reflected in the National Policy of Education 1986 and its modified policy 1992, which is known as Program of Action. And next we see National Policy of Education 1986 and POA 1992. In 1968, when the National Policy of Education was formulated for improving the educational scenario in our country, there it was advised that it would be followed by a 5-year review to progress and working out of new policies and programs. Regarding this, at the time of formulation of every new 5-year plan, a review has been made to assess the drawbacks of shortcoming as well as achievements of education, and finally to decide on some plans or programs for the coming 5 years. It is through making the policies and programs that every country seeks to develop its system of education to express and promote its unique socio-cultural identity, and also to meet the challenges of the times. And the National Policy of Education of 1986 is the result of the reviews, which was discussed and adopted during the budget session of 1985. When Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India, again a committee was set up under the chairmanship of Acharya Ramamurthy in May 1990 to review national policy of education and to make recommendations for its modifications. The National Policies Center Advisory Body Board of Education, a committee set up in July 1991 under the chairmanship of Shri N. Jagannath Reddy, Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, considered some modifications in new education policies, taking into consideration the report of Ramurthy Committee and other relevant development having a bearing on the policy. And this committee submitted its report in January 1992, which is known as National Program of Action of 1992. This policy aimed to promote national progress, a sense of common citizenship and culture, and to strengthen national integration. And this committee, the Central Committee, submitted its report. This report says the national integration strength is always it fed stress on the need for a radical reconstruction of the education system to improve its quality at all stages and therefore give much greater attention to science and technology. The cultivation of moral values and, and a closer relation between education and the life of the pupil. And there is the various recommendation of national policy of education, POA. And after going through the basic objective of NPE of 1986 and its modification policy in 1992, the recommendations of the policy have been divided into the 24 chapters. So the one by one, all chapters are discussed. First of all, early childhood care and education. Integrated Child Development Service, pre-primary schools of the state government and municipality daycare centers and training institutes of teachers and the existing faculties of pre-primary education should be strengthened and should revise increased attentions from the government. The chapter first, besides these, the system of monitoring and evaluation should be strengthened. And the next chapter, chapter second, elementary education, non-formal and operation, blackboard. national policy of education and its modified policy emphasized on elementary education. First is universal enrollment and universal retention of children up to 14 years of age. And second is a substantial improvement in the quality of education. In the second chapter, besides this policy also calls for drives for a substantial improvement of the primary schools and provision of support service. Even some measures have been proposed for securing participation of girls and of children from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes families, other educationally backward section, and minority. This type of secondary education, elementary education in this chapter, in the context of operational blackboard. In second chapter, we also know the operational blackboard also. In the context of operational blackboard, the policy emphasized says the following facilities that should be kept for implementing the operational blackboard. First of all, two reasonably large rooms that are usable in all weather. And second, necessary toys and games materials. And next is blackboards and maps, charts, and other learning materials. These are the modern technological tools. Modern technological tools such as solar packs for provision of power in non-formal education centers, audio-visual aids, radios, cassettes, players should be used to improve the learning environment of non-formal education centers, as well as to enhance the quality of non-formal education. These are the things that involved in second chapter, elementary education, non-formal education, and operation blackboard. And the next chapter is secondary education and Navodaya Vidyalayas. Regarding secondary education, the national policy of education of 1986 impiled extension of the school system in the unserved areas, consolidating the existing facilities and providing special arrangements for the gifted child and high achievers. In this type of arrangements, the arrangement should require program to ensure access to secondary education being winded to cover unserved area. And next, the program of consolidation in other areas. And the next of program of setting up Navodaya Vidyalayas. In these types of arrangements, taking the secondary education and Navodaya Vidyalayas. Beside these, as a short-term measure, the state government should be pursued to open secondary schools in unserved area, taking blocks as a unit having a lower ratio than 1:2 and 2:5, duly considering the present distance of habitation from the nearest secondary school and population in the unsaved habitation. And the next chapter in the national policy, the chapter is vocationalization of education. Vocationalization education inform from classes 1st to 5th socially useful product work experience creates an integral part of the curriculum in many states. At the middle stage, the work experience program should aim at developing confidence and sufficient psychomotor skills to students through certain occupational training courses. These are the thing in use of vocationalization of education. And the next chapter in higher education, chapter 5th is higher education. The national policy of education of 1986 and its revised policy, which is known as Program of Action of 1992, had laid importance of higher education, particularly or graduate, postgraduate, and research work also. It suggested that autonomous colleges should be established according to UGC directives. Technical institutes like medical, engineering, agriculture universities, etc., should be set up, and development of vocational skill was to be stressed upon. And next, the chapter of sixth chapter. Chapter 6 is open universities and distance education. Open universities and distance education have been designed to promote the accessibility of education at higher stage, as well as making higher education as flexible as is required by the learners. And the Central Open University, which is known as Indira Gandhi National Open University, has been assigned the responsibility to coordinate the distance learning system in the country and determine its standards in order to develop and strengthen the open university system. This is the open university and distance education system in this national policy on education. And next chapter we see seventh chapter, rural universities and institution. In this universities national policy of education of 1986 and its revised policy of 1992 envisaged that the rural universities and institutions should be developed in rural areas. After studying the needs of such pattern of educational institutions in rural communities, as well as also strengthening the program of Gandhian basic education. And this type of rural universities and institutions. And the next chapter, technical and management education. Regarding the technical and management education system, the policy started that technical and management education system should be clustered with reference to the interrelated objectives and priorities and programs of the key functional areas like development of human resource, development spectrum with great potentials for adding values to products and services and for contributing to the national economy and improving quality of life of the people. And the next chapter, we see the making of the system work. Which type of making the system? The national policy of education and its revised policy, which is known as program of action, referred to the necessity of introducing discipline into the present system of education. In this making of the system of work. And the next is delinking. Delinking of degrees and the degree from job and manpower planning. This is the man planning, and the first is known as making the system of working, the national policy of education and its revised policy envisaged that some job oriented degree course as well as skill oriented courses should be made for promoting human capital in the state as well as in the nation. It had some also been referred to be to by the NPE and POA that the teachers' accommodability towards the profession should be developed on behalf of improving the students' services, and the behavior of the students should be promoted in accordance with acceptable norms and also better facilities for the educational institutions should be ensured in order to drive the performance of the institutions. And the next chapter is research and development. In this chapter, research and development in national policy of education and POA, the stress was laid on research as an essential component of higher education because of its role in creating new knowledge and insights, imparting innovations, and dynamize to the educational process. And this, the POA, also the chapter of next, the chapter 12 is the women education. The NPE and POA laid stress on the problem of universalization of elementary education as in essence the problem of the girl child and on the increasing participation of girls at all stages of education, particularly in streams like science, vocational, technical, and commerce education. In the POA, also stressed the need for rewriting the education system to promote the women's quality in education. It advocated the need for women education, and the next education is vocational, technical, and commerce education, and institutional mechanism to ensure that gender sensitivity be reflected in the implementation of all national programs. The national education system should play a positive role in the empowerment of women and contribute towards the development of new values through re- resigned curricula and textbooks with women's study being promoted as part of the various courses. And the next chapter, education of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and backward section. The priorities should be accorded to opening primary schools in tribal areas, scheduled caste areas, and backward areas according to the NPE and POA. And the next chapter, we see minorities education. Article 29 and Article 30. The Constitution guarantee the right of minorities, and conserve the language, script, and culture, and to establish and administrator educational institutions of their choice, whether based on religion of language. The NPE and POA had addressed the problems of the minorities, as the minority group are educationally deprived or backward, and therefore greater attention should be paid to their education of their groups in the interest of equality and justice. And the next chapter are my education of the handicapped. The NPE and POA proposed to stipulate that the education of the children with locomotor handicapped and other mild handicaps should be same and common as the normal children, and the objective of should be to integrate the physically and mentally handicapped with the general community as equal partners to prepare them of normal growth and to enable them to face life with courage and confidence. And the next chapter, adult education. Adult education, the NPE and POA advised that adult education would be a means for reducing economic, social, and gender disparity. The whole nation had pledged itself through the National Literacy Mission to the eradication of literacy, particularly in the age group of 15 to 35, through various means with special emphasis on total literacy campaign. And the next is the National Literacy Mission should be created to the national goals such as environmental conversation, observance of the small family, norms, promotion of women's equality, universalization of primary education, basic health care, etc. In these chapters, next is content and process of school education. Regarding the content, the process of school education, NPE and POA made the following points: access to education of a comparable quality for all, irrespective of caste, creed, location, or sex. An introduction to the norms of minimum level of learning for different stages and provision of threshold facilities so that learning became a more enjoyable experience even for the slow learners. Articulation of a national system of education with the common structure, national curricula, framework which contains common core. And next, examination reforms and introduction of evaluation as an ongoing process in schools for the improvement of teaching and learning. And the next, development of culture specific curricular and instructional material for the tribal people and educationally deprived minority groups, keeping in view their rich cultural identity. And next is overhauling of the system of teacher education and strengthening that of the technical and resource support structures, including the establishment of district institute of education and training and the decentralization of educational administration, creation of a spirit of autonomy of educational institutions with greater role assigned to the institutional heads and development of professionalism among teachers, promotion of on non-governmental and voluntary efforts and people's participation for giving input to innovative ideas and practices and mobilization of resources. And the next is chapter 18th, evaluation process and examination reforms. The policy visualized integration of the assessment of performance with the process of learning and teaching and utilizing the process of evaluation to bring about qualitative change in education. And next, the 19th chapter, youth and support. The NPE and POA stressed the following formulation: integration of sports and physical education in the learning process and evaluation of performance, and the involvement of youth in national and social development and sports and games, etc. And this is the next, language development. The NPE and POEA elaborately discussed about the concept of language development and emphasized the adoption of regional languages as the media of instruction at the university's stage. And next, we will see the cultural development. While the formulating the national policy, the basic emphasis was even to interlinking education with culture. And next is the media and educational technology. This type of technology, the NPE and POA emphasized that in order to avoid structural dualism, modern educational technology should be reached out to the most distant areas and to the deprived sections to beneficiary simultaneously with the areas of comparative influence and ready availability. And the next chapter, teacher and their training, the new program of teacher education should emphasize need to continuing education and also the need for teachers to meet the thrusts envisaged in this policy. In the next, the National Council of Teacher Education should be provide the necessary resources and capability to accredited institution of teacher education and to provide guidance regarding curricula and methods. And the last chapter, the management education, according to the NPE and POA, educational planning should be linked to manpower planning. These are the all chapters of National Policy of Education. And the end of this topic, we see the references of these topics. At the end of this topic, some multiple choice questions is there. First question is the major disadvantages of punishment in education is that it causes embarrassment in children, it generates unpleasant feelings, it does not solve the problem permanently, it prevents teamwork. What is the answer? The answer is it generates unpleasant feelings. This is the answer of this question. And the next question, what would you do if you notice that students tend to doze off in your class? Give a command seeking attention, providing them a chance to be physically active, and reprimand them. Stop teaching for a while. The right answer of this question is giving a command seeking attention. And next question, National Policy of Education 1986 was reviewed by, who's reviewed? Ellie Delshid Committee, Ishwar Bhai Patel Committee, Ramamurthy Committee, and Sampurnanand Committee. The right answer of this question is Ramamurthy Committee. And next question, dash is the major cause of difference in the classroom behavior of boy and girl, development differences, educational levels, job aspirations, and societal expectations. The answer of this question is societal expectations. And the next question is which of the following policies was introduced in 1975? First is curriculum for the 10-year school and Kothari Commission report, Macaulay report, and Radhakrishnan report. And right answer of this question is curriculum for the 10-year school. And next question, the purpose of the textbook is to provide a learning material based on a syllabus of a learner, a material to teachers to base teaching on, and a material forming the basis and content for examinations, reading and reference materials for the teachers. Right answer of this question is a learning material based on a syllabus to a learner. This is the right answer of this question. And the next question, a blackboard cannot be used for improvement of a paragraph, making report based on information, show systematic diagrams, summary of relationships between facts, at the right answer of this question, making reports based on information. In next question, exams are held to assess learners' skills, identify learning problems, identify the level of learning, rank student for selection. The right answer is assess learners' skills. The exam are held. And the next question, what is the biggest advantage of interaction between the teacher and the students? It encourages the students to ask questions. It facilitates effective learning. It results in better group relations. It satisfies the teachers. The right answer of this question, it facilitates effective learnings is the right answer. And the next and last question of this topic, dash cannot be adopted for effective classroom teaching. The options are improving classroom climate, manipulating teaching methods, teaching latest trends and advances, and the use of technological aids. What is the right answer? The right answer of this question is teaching latest trends and advances. Is the right answer of this question. And this is the all about the topic National Policy on Education in 1986, its review 1992, and the last of the topic is thank you